This week on ICN, the stories you should have heard but didn't. Baxter Pharmaceutical being held to account in Austria. Supreme Court nominee resigns from elite women's-only club. 2003 memo claims President Bush planned false flag operation to manipulate UN to invade Iraq. U.S. government wants personal information of online commenters. Those stories and more next on Informed Citizen News. Hello and welcome to ICN, Informed Citizen News, June 28, 2009. It was just released that a journalist filed a lawsuit in Austria against Baxter International. The Austrian court prosecutor accepted the complaint related to Baxter's shipment of live killer avian flu virus to 18 countries back in February. The Austrian legal system will handle this filing from the journalist as a criminal complaint and open an investigation. Baxter is charged with developing, manufacturing, disseminating, and releasing a biological weapon of mass destruction, with the intention of causing a global bird flu pandemic and of intending to profit from that same pandemic in an act that violates laws of international organized crime and genocide. ICN was one of the few news outlets to cover the story back in early March, prior to the outbreak of the swine flu. We will monitor the investigation and provide updates when they become available. Supreme Court nominee Sotomeyor resigned from an elite all-women's club after Republicans questioned her participation in it. Sotomeyor said she resigned from the Belizian Grove to prevent the issue from becoming a distraction in her confirmation hearings. This story went under the radar as the press didn't report much about the secret group. The Belizian Grove bills itself as a woman's answer to the 130-year-old all-male Bohemian Grove Club in California. According to their website, the Belizian Grove is a constellation of influential women who are key decision makers in the profit, nonprofit, and social sectors, who build long-term mutually beneficial relationships in order to both take charge of their own destinies and help others to do the same. Sounds innocent enough until you understand more about the all-male club that they modeled themselves after. The all-male Bohemian Grove owns a 2,500-acre camping area in Northern California called the Grove. Elite men of our country have attended the Bohemian Grove over the last century. It has been reported that this club conducts nude parties and engage in pagan rituals, dress up in red hooded robes, and participate in a ritual called the cremation of care at the base of a 40-foot owl altar. Several elite males have publicly commented on the Grove, like Richard Nixon, Ralph Nader, CEOs, and political advisor David Gergen. We have posted links to some of these comments in our video description section. The David Gergen interview is somewhat disturbing. In order to sound non-discriminatory, Sotomayor said that men participate in the group's activities. No one followed up to ask about the type of activities, probably because they were afraid of the answer. A London paper, The Guardian, reported that they have viewed a 2003 memo documenting the intention of then-President Bush to stage a false flag operation, if necessary, that would corner the UN into endorsing an invasion of Iraq. In the memo, communications were referenced where President Bush told Prime Minister Blair that the U.S. had drawn up a provocative plan to fly U-2 reconnaissance aircraft painted in UN colors over Iraq with fighter cover. Bush said that if Saddam fired at the planes, this would put the Iraqi leader in breach of UN resolutions. However, Bush confirmed, even without a second UN resolution, the U.S. was prepared for military action. The memo said Blair told Bush he was solidly with the president. Recognizing that this is old news and certainly not surprising to anyone, but it is just another example of how arrogant leaders will do anything to manipulate events to push their own agenda. Not to mention using the military as pawns and putting the lives of the pilots at risk for a political stunt. We are a nation of sheep. Sure, there are a few sheep that know better, but they are lost in the midst of the flock. History is always made by the minority. If the shepherd is leading you to the slaughter, then you better start convincing your fellow sheep to change direction. Natural News highlighted the actions of one doctor who may have made between $30 and $50 million from vaccine royalties. Dr. Paul Offit of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia received at least $29 million from his share of royalties for Merck's Rototec vaccine after using his position with the CDC to influence the vote to make childhood vaccination with his vaccine compulsory. Between 1998 and 2003, Offit sat on the U.S. government's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. He was simultaneously involved with the development of Rototec and advising the government. Offit consistently voted in favor of making vaccination against rotavirus part of the compulsory U.S. childhood immunization schedule. He also voted to rescind the recommendation of Wyeth's competing vaccine, RotaShield, while aggressively advocating for the idea that other rotavirus vaccines would be less dangerous. The article concludes, in the case of Rototec, its addition to the vaccine schedule led to an increase in yearly revenue of $655 million over the course of 2 years. In Las Vegas, online comments that were perceived as threats have led federal prosecutors to demand that the Las Vegas Review-Journal turn over the names of people who posted. Authorities also want to know the writer's gender, birth date, physical address, telephone number, internet service provider, IP address, credit card numbers, and more. Prosecutors are demanding the information through a federal grand jury subpoena. The newspaper is resisting the subpoena, and the ACLU posted beneath the story an offer to help readers who feel threatened by these demands. The people were commenting on a news story about Las Vegas business owner Robert Carr and others who face federal tax fraud charges for paying contractors with gold and silver U.S. coins based on the precious metal value, but using the much lower face value for tax purposes. The newspaper's subpoena does not explain why the U.S. Attorney's Office wants to know who commented on the case, but prosecutors told the federal judge that they issued it out of concern for jurors' safety because some comments hinted at acts of violence. Insider stock sales are at their highest pace since the financial crisis began in 2007. If insiders are selling into the rally, that shows that they don't expect their business to be able to support current stock price levels. They're taking advantage of this bounce and selling into it, said Joseph Keating, the Chief Investment Officer of RBC Bank. CEOs selling their stock is a clear warning of things to come. In 2002, Rockefeller authored his autobiography, Memoirs, wherein on page 405 he wrote, "For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents to attack the Rockefeller family for the inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure, one world if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it." David Rockefeller, in his own words. Thanks for watching this week. Share this channel with all your friends and family because we need an informed America. From all of us at Informed Citizen News, have a good week.